Managing Director of SongBird Marketing, Trevor Shorte, up here to talk about building your brand. Welcome, Trevor.
Hello. Every time I hold one of these things, I want to break it as a beatbox. But whatever. Anyways, sorry. That's me. Apparently, I'm the example that Craig decided he wanted to use for his other idea validation. But whatever. Building your brand. All right. So let's talk a little bit about branding. First, this is a little bit about me. I've done some things. So, if you guys want to talk about any of the things that I've done, feel free to call me. I'll tell you all about it. What is a brand? That's a very interesting question that so many people are asking all the time. These are the things your brand is not. Your brand isn't your logo. Brand is not your identity. The brand is not just a product. It's a combination of all of these things, but the biggest thing about a brand is the fact that it's whatever a person feels about you, your company, and the product or service that you do. It's whatever it is it takes to get an emotional response from somebody. Now, I didn't make these rules up. This guy, Marty Neumeier, made that. He's one of probably the foremost brand experts in the world today. I kind of agree with him, but I'd like to take it a little bit further, and I always want to talk about what makes a brand. Craig touched a little bit on this when he talked about his idea validation. Within the idea validation, there's a lot of things that you need to figure out. These are some of the world's largest brands. When you look at them, they all evoke some type of emotional response from you. Why does that happen? Because they spent decades trying to build these things to that point. Every single brand on this list here has spent a lot of years building up their audiences, what do they have in common? Think about it. They have their audiences, and they're also able to make sure that you feel something whenever you look at these brands. So the question is, how do they do that? They all have this one thing in common. They figured out who their audience is. Craig touched a little bit on this during his presentation, but do you know who you're going to sell to and how you're going to reach them? Because if you don't, you won't be able to build a brand. These are some of the foundational things that you need to be able to build not only a brand, but a company as well, because all of these things are basically the foundation of what's going to propel your brand into the future. There's two different things that we like to look at when we're talking about who your audience is, your buyer persona and then your buyer behaviors. Buyer personas are really just about who's actually going to buy your product. Do you even know who that is? Craig talked about that when he was looking at the idea validation, going out and talking to people and finding out who your ideal clients are. And then the behaviors identify what they do, where they do it, how they do it, so that you can figure out how to get your messaging to them. Because if you can't figure out how to get your message to them, if nobody knows you exist, nobody's going to buy anything from you. The other thing that Craig talked about is, what's your value proposition? Part of your value proposition is developed through coming up with this. What is your unique selling point? Why is it that people are going to want to buy your brand or product or service or whatever it is you want to call it? But that whole entire meaning is based on this. If you can't figure out why, what makes you special, no one's going to buy your stuff. There's so many different brands out there, and Craig talked about this with competition. There's somebody out there who's doing something probably already. So you have to figure out what is it that makes it you're either better, faster, stronger, cheaper. Cheaper may not necessarily always be better. Sometimes more expensive is better. I mean, would you rather have a Ferrari or a Pinto? These are the types of things that will help you understand when you're trying to build a brand. You need to really get to the heart of the reason why people are going to buy your stuff. And that is where the magic happens. The other thing that people tend to forget is, what's your sales process? And when I say what's your sales process, my first question to you is, all right, so you decided you wanted to make this product. You decided that you've got a customer who's going to buy it. So how do they buy it? Are they going to buy it online if it's a software product? Or are you actually going to, are they going to have to sign up for something? If you've got an actual physical product, are you now going to have to ship it to them? How are they going to buy it? Are they going to buy it online? Are you going to set up an e-commerce site? There are so many different questions that you have to answer in order for you to figure out how you're going to deliver whatever it is that you've built to your audience. So the first question I want to ask when I'm looking at these types of things is it easy for your customers to buy from you? Because if it's difficult, they're not going to do it. If it's way too hard for somebody to get from A to B, there's no way they're going to buy into it, because for them, it's too much of a hassle. And then the other thing is it easy for you to deliver it? So if you've got a product that you've decided is going to be something that you can sell online and people will get a finished product eventually, well, can somebody overseas buy it? Is that going to be part of your business model? Or are you only shipping to Toronto? Are you shipping across Canada? Are you shipping into the U.S.? These are all important questions, because if all of a sudden your target market is in the U.S. and you haven't figured out that you need to deliver to the U.S. or how much that's going to cost you, that's going to affect your product, which in turn affects your brand, because all of that is all tied together when it comes to people looking at how your brand and the things that you deliver. One of the biggest things I want you guys to take from this is your brand is going to be the key thing for people to understand what it is that you can do. If you can solve their problem, they'll love your brand. If you can't, they'll kick you to the curb real quickly. Now, I had this slide because people tend to forget about content. Content is actually very important when it comes to building a brand. The reason why content is important is because this is all of your key messaging. This is where you get people to understand what it is you can do, how you can do it for them, and why they want to buy it from you. When you have the right messaging and you have all of these things working together for you, everybody's going to see is that you have the solution to their problems, and you can solve everything that they need to have solved. Your website, for example, if your website is pretty bare bones and it doesn't tell people what they need when they get there, they're not going to go. They're going to disappear. Your social media has to be able to engage people and to get them to understand what it is that you can do for them, and start to build a community, because it's a community that's going to help build your brand. The last thing I want to talk about is as part of your content. If people don't believe you can't solve their problem, they're not going to buy your product. That is the very basic genesis of everything that we do when it comes to building a brand. So when Craig talks about the idea of validation, all that idea validation turns into, and Craig and I actually we like the business model canvas. That's probably the single best product ever to be able to help you determine whether or not you're going to go from your idea that you have to actually getting something, being able to deliver to somebody. And with those two things together, you've got a really good foundation to building your business and building your brand. And I'll tell you, if you don't do those things, you're asking for a lot of trouble, because you're literally basically building your brand on sand. I went through this really quickly because I know Craig was running short on time, so I left out some of the anecdotes and stories, but I've got lots of stories to tell, so if you want to talk to me, we certainly can. We're doing a panel later, so if you have any questions for me, you can throw those in there. Otherwise, you can send me email, call me, whatever. I'm free. I got nothing else to do for the rest of the night, so I'm good.